So for the last 5 years, the mainstream media has gone along with crazy. Has just gone right along with it. They've put their cameras on it. They've talked about it, and always made it out for what it was intended to be, and never made it out for what it actually was. The last 5 years of this just insanity. So now all of a sudden, Rudy Giuliani comes up here with pretty much the same level of craziness that I've seen over the last 5 years, and the press doesn't want anything to do with it. They want to make fun of it. They don't want to cover it, and they say that he's crazy, that it's baseless, and they just went all out after it, both sides. MSNBC, I'm going to play a clip here. I'm going to play a clip from Fox. You can see what they have to say about it, and then I'm going to talk more about it. Let's just look at the clip and see what they have to say.
That gets us to today, and today may be remembered when all the craziness is over for one thing, and it's this visual. Rudy Giuliani's hair dye started dripping down his face after an outbreak of flop sweat during a press conference which will only be remembered for conspiracy theories and dark liquid. It was rambling, repugnant.
Well, that was certainly a colorful news conference from Rudy Giuliani, but it was light on facts. So much of what he said was simply not true or has already been thrown out in court. And, Giuliani, he opened by making this really bold and baseless claim that a lot of this alleged nationwide voter fraud that he's referring to all came from one centralized place. He called it a nationwide conspiracy. And yet he failed to provide any hard evidence to back up that one specific claim, especially when you're dealing with a claim that really cuts to the core of our democratic process.
So that's the kind of reporting that we should have been hearing over the last 5 years. When Trump started to rise with his insanity, how the press gave that circus a mouthpiece and the public stage so that they could carry out what's been a disaster, an objective disaster over the last 5 years, especially the last year. It's been nothing but pettiness, backstabbing, vendettas, revenge. It's the worst soap opera you can imagine, and it's real life. And the press went right along with it, didn't say anything about it. They were just like, yeah, that's reality. Now all of a sudden we've got Rudy Giuliani up there, not schwitzing. They didn't say anything about the hot lights and the hot room and his hair dye. Maybe it wasn't hair dye, it was a reaction to some medication. Whatever bullcrap that they want to make up to make an excuse for it. They didn't do that this time. They called it out for what it was: flop sweat. The sweat that comes from an obvious failure. The hair dye is a perfect analogy for the whole press conference, because people no more believed the color of your hair than they believed all of the accusations and conspiracy theories. Just the thin, there's just nothing there. And I don't know if it's that the ice is too thin for the press right now. I don't think that's true, because they've tried to carry a narrative on thinner ice and no one said anything about it. So I just find it really curious how mainstream media is starting to do what they should have been doing back before this whole circus fest started. This is just one clear example of what I've been talking about how there's a lot of competing interests, and Trump he's been kind of good for the media, because I don't think people have watched the news as much. It's been great for elections because people haven't voted as much. He's got us all engaged because we are so afraid. Fear sells, and that's what all of this has been about the last 4 or 5 years. It's just making money and not caring where the chips land. Well, eventually we're going to have to face the music. The consequences are going to come due. And that's where we're at now. We're in the pit of the consequences that the last 5 years have dug because the press haven't done their job. So if you want some real news, if you want some real press, don't go to the mainstream media. You've got to go to the straight. You've got to do the job yourself. You've got to be the media yourself. And there's no reason why you can't be. You can do just as good a job, if not better, than mainstream media. You can watch the same videos. You can make the same determinations. You can listen to analysts and try to figure out what they're saying that you think has some factual basis and what they're saying is a complete con job. You can do that. You've got the power, just like I can do it. You can create your own channel. You can put the word out there, whatever it is that you think it is, and we can have these conversations ourselves. But let's not rely on a handful of organizations that obviously have an agenda that's counter to the general welfare of the average person and the public at large. So let's take responsibility of yet one more thing. We can't let our representatives lead. We have to drive the horse, and we can't take the media's word for it. And this just highlights it, that it's finally come back around that they're saying what they should have been saying. I know they know how to do a job. I know that they have editorial control and they can say, no, this is a wackadoodle. We're not giving them any press. This person has some legitimate claims or facts. We're going to give them some press. That's how they should be doing this. I don't know. It's really disappointing, but not surprising. So that's the broken news on this story.